How do I treat for varroa mites? Uh, I do several different things. I do use screen bottom boards, which supposedly helps maybe 10 or 12% on mite. Bottom boards, I think, are mostly for ventilation, but if they help some for mites, that's great. So I'd use that. As far as treatments for mites, I've done various things, which if you look at all the literature, you are supposed to use various things throughout the year. You're not supposed to stay with one type of treatment. Treatment depends a lot on temperature. There are some treatments that you can't use at high temperatures or low temperatures. And there are some treatments that you can't use when you have honey supers on because you don't want to taint your honey. So kind of going through some of them, our main honey flow in this area is tallow. We will get a flow earlier in the year, like around second or third week of March, a lot of times. But our tallow flow usually starts maybe second week of May and runs through first part of June. So it limits you on some of the mite treatments that you can use, especially the ones that have some type of essential oil, which usually is thymol. So thymol doesn't work either when it's real cold. So you've got a short window in the springtime when you could use thymol after the temperature warms up a little bit, but before you get to the main honey flow. So you've got maybe a couple of weeks in the springtime when you could use some type of thymol treatment. Other than that, then you've got to wait till after you get your supers off before you could use those. I've used HopGuard, the beta hops acid. It's really messy to use. It's really, you really need to have rubber gloves on when you handle that stuff because it's messy and you don't want to get it on you. That can be used most any time of the year, even if you've got supers on, other than maybe when it gets really hot, you know, like in August or so. So HopGuard I've used a couple of times during the year. Amitraz is a synthetic insecticide that a lot of people are using now, especially commercial beekeepers, I think, are using Amitraz a lot. I have never used it, mainly because we try to market our honey, the little that we have, as natural. And Amitraz is a synthetic insecticide, so I have never used Amitraz product. And at this point, unless I have to, I'm not going to. Not to say that it's not good, because I've heard a lot of good things about it, but that's the reason that I don't use Amitraz. I've done a lot of oxalic acid treatments. I'll be doing one, say, between Christmas and first part of January when it's cold, because oxalic acid works very good on phoretic mites that aren't hiding under the cappings. So that time of the year when it's really cold, you don't have a lot of brood in this area, so you can kill a lot of mites that are crawling around on the bees in your cluster. So oxalic acid works real good at that time of the year. I have done it other times of the year when there is brood, but then you've got to treat more than once because oxalic acid is a one-shot treatment. There's no residue that's staying in the hive like thymol or formic or something like that. So it's a one-shot treatment that kills mites at that point, doesn't kill any of the mites that are under the capping. So if you use oxalic acid when there's a lot of brood, then you've got to treat like 3 times once every week for 3 weeks. There's some question as to whether that may have an effect on your brood and your queen. So I have done it, but I try not to do the 3 times or even 4 times oxalic acid treatments. Um, so that's what I've been using is HopGuard and oxalic acid and sometimes some thymol. I have used the thermal treat thing where you slide a board in under the hive and it heats up to about 106 degrees and it kills mites. Also kills other things in there too that you don't want, like small hive beetles, which is good. Totally organic because there's no chemical involved at all, but it has some drawbacks. It's a 110 volt system, which means you got to have a generator, and it takes like 3.5 hours to run. So, and it's not cheap. It's like $300. So I've done that a few times over the last couple years. I have seen a little bit of success with it, but that's not my go-to mite treatment. I'll use oxalic acid, HopGuard, and Formic for the main part. But I've really got to watch the temperature. You've got to watch those instructions that come with those products and abide by the dose and the temperature and where your honey flow is, depending on which product you have.